Go ahead.
We will call the September 19th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Commissioner Burrell and Commissioner Potter are at an economic development conference. Commissioner Burrell may be here, but he'll be coming in late. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty, the minutes from the county board on 9/12.
Mr. Chair, I will move the minutes from last week.
Second that.
Motion by Commissioner Hewsome, second by Commissioner Vetch. Is there any further discussion? Do you have anything, Lee? Everything was perfect?
I think everything was perfect. Just a note, we did recess into closed session. At the conclusion of that meeting, there was no action item that will need to be brought to a public forum. So just a clarification for the public that may be questioning.
Okay. Will that be put into the minutes?
We'll add it to today's minutes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Approve agenda. We have one thing for sure I know that we need to add to the agenda.
Board, just clarification, my item is to JD 15, not 14. We already redetermined 14. So my item is to schedule joint ditch 15 and county ditch 13 for redeterminations.
Okay.
Okay, 14. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
15.
15.
No, he's got it. It's 14 up above.
Oh, up here. Oh,
Yep.
okay. It's
Right, 14 and 15 run together.
Yep.
It's got 15 down below, 14 up above.
above.
So you just confused everybody, that's all.
The agenda says 14.
Yeah, but down below it talks about joint ditch 15, so he was confused. And then we also have something for the consent agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if we could add to the consent agenda to refer a IT position to hire above the 12% of the hiring range to the next personnel committee on 9/27.
And so we'll do that as item G. On the consent agenda.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
questions on that at all?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Consent agenda. Anybody have anything they would like to remove?
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Hewsome, second by Commissioner Vetch. Any further discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. We can move things along really fast with just 3 commissioners.
As long as you all agree on the vote.
9:02, we're close to it. Our award-winning auditor treasurer.
Good morning, Board. The first item on the agenda, we've gotten the viewers' report. They've done their legwork. Now we're going to hold those public hearings and informational meetings. So this is down the southwest corner. This is joint ditch 15. We did joint ditch 14 last year. So we have county ditch 13 as well. The board, we're looking to set a date and time for the public hearing Joint Ditch 15, we have an issue that we have to have McLeod and Meeker there. So I'm going to recommend that we set an evening meeting, preferably here in November or December. And I'd recommend a Thursday if that's possible.
So you're looking for having it here in Buffalo?
Well, the JD 15, I think 14 we did in Stockholm. So I'm asking Janice to search availability of their hall on a Thursday evening. But what I want to know from you is, do you have an appetite for an evening meeting in November, December?
Yeah.
As long as it's not within the first week, I got some stuff the first week, but yeah.
Well, the first week of December, you mean?
Of November.
Of November?
Yeah.
Right, it won't be that. The other one is a county ditch, which we don't have Meeker McLeod with.
Right.
And we could hold them separately, or we could hold them the same day.
Is that in the same area?
No,
No.
it's the Buffalo Township. So,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chair, Bob, I'd be in favor of having separate meetings because they're on opposite ends of the
Right.
county, so. Unless we'd have it at a central location, but with Meeker and McLeod being there,
Right.
it'd be nice to be closer to them for the 15.
It's my recommendation that we set 2 public hearing dates. And the one, again, they can both be evenings, to allow more of the citizens to
I
be able
think,
to.
I think the evenings would be much better suited for what we're doing there.
Yep.
And I'd like to stay away from November 28th, that Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're going to be here for the truth and taxation.
We are.
so.
Well, you said you wanted to do them on a Thursday? So that,
I think last
the
time.
third Thursday in November might be a
It's
problem.
going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the fourth Thursday.
The fourth.
Oh, Thursday, I'm
The
sorry.
third one should be okay.
Well, we could serve turkey.
I don't want to be the turkey being served.
Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if we should table this until next week so we have all 5 commissioners here for setting a date, or does it not make any difference?
I agree. I think I'd rather wait because I'd hate for us to schedule a date and then have to reschedule it again because the other
The other
two
two.
are. Yep.
Be here.
So at least today, you are setting an evening meeting, preferably Thursday. That'll help us reach out to McLeod and Meeker.
Perfect.
We'll also
Yeah,
let
we
the
need to
viewers
get
know
them
this.
in the loop too to find out what's available
What
for
will
them.
work for them?
Our viewer team, just for, they're doing a lot of other public hearings, so I'll encourage them to do those during the day and then have ours in
Okay.
the evening. At least we got that accomplished.
You're looking to have it out in Stockholm, or is it what you had the idea?
At least the Joint Ditch 15. I mean, that's where those citizens are. And then maybe hold it here for County Ditch 13.
13,
Okay.
yeah.
The other option maybe if we,
Buffalo Town Hall?
yeah, but though I'm talking about out there, that's south of Cokato, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of when we were out at that, I think we were out at that meeting one other time. And it was kind of crowded in there, if I remember
Well-
correctly. I'm just wondering if maybe,
It was well attended, but I think
Yeah.
it facilitated
It was-
people.
I'm just,
the one meeting we were at, though, was at Cokato Town Hall or Stockholm Town Hall?
Was it
That was a
Stockholm?
converted church,
Yeah,
right?
Stockholm.
That was large.
okay, I might be confused
Yeah.
with the one other one.
And for your benefit, 15 is a larger system than 14.
Right.
But
I'm just wondering if maybe a school in Cokato might be better suited for it. is
I
what
do
I'm
believe that
thinking.
that converted church is big enough.
It's
Okay.
big.
Yep, no, I'm thinking of something else.
Yep.
Sorry, I know you're trying to move this along. We could also schedule County Ditch 13 during the day here.
No, I think for the residents, it's better off in the evenings.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Do we want a motion
Table
on
in-
that, or do you just want to just push it over till next week until we can actually set a date?
I'll just bring it back next week.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I'll reach out to our sister counties and preferably come back with their dates that work
Some
best.
dates, great.
All right.
Perfect.
all right, item number 2.
Now, item number 2 is to approve the August budget reports. And board, I just wanted to draw your attention to, we've been using OpenGov now for a while. And the product that I've been working on with them, it's called dashboards. So we have built a couple of these dashboards, but the one I want to show you is the Commissioner's dashboard. So what I envision is soon you're going to be able to have this at your own desk, and we'll improve the timeliness of this information. This is a beta, so help me that it doesn't go wrong here. So, for example, I'm prompting you with how are we doing on revenues. So, we're right on schedule with revenues. So you'd have the gray boxes, the budget, and the blue boxes are the actual. We're doing relatively right on line with expenses as well. We're creating like speedometers on how we're doing on objects like overtime, countywide. At 66% of the year, we're at 66% of budget on overtime, so right on. During the budget process, we've been talking about utilities. So I thought I'd give you a box on, draw your attention to how we're doing on utilities. And then we have like HS programs. We have lots of other ones to walk you through, but today I just want to introduce you to this dashboard that we're striving to zero in your attention to what you want. These will all be customized to the things that you want to see.
We'll be able to dial it down to whatever area we want, correct?
Yeah, so
filters.
we'll look at expenses. So on expenses, you can see that, you know, the line bar is the budget, the solid bar is the actual. So if you want to look at personnel, you can see we're a little bit under budget on personnel. That's due to not being able to fill some of our vacancies. If I go over here and I break this down by department, you can see that we group our departments by functional government. So under general government, you'd have the auditor treasurer's office. So then these are all the departments that are part of general government. So the auditor's office, that's my budget for personnel, and that's my actual. So we're going to be able to drill into this. If you want to know how we're doing countywide on postage, on overtime, you're going to be able to drill in on it.
That'll be nice.
And this will also be eventually on the county website too, correct?
Yeah, there's like a storyboard part of it. Instead of just throwing raw data, we're going to be able to prompt the question and then draw them into it.
Yeah.
So for August, there really is nothing more that I should draw your attention to as far as extraneous objects. I've talked about boarding prisoners. We're pretty good on revenues and pretty good on expenses.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a motion to accept the August budget reports.
I'll make a motion to accept the August budget reports.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussions? It's hard to believe, no discussion when there's just three of us here.
We know who the talkers are.
Yeah, all those in favor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign, motion carries unanimous. Mr. Riley, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Good morning.
We want to have a meeting of the whole too.
Yes, same issue you had with Bob scheduling. Request scheduling a meeting committee of the whole regarding the request by advanced disposal for a rezoning.
I'm assuming you want this in the evening also?
We're going to let you decide that, but last time we did this, it was an evening meeting. We have the Planning Commission meeting scheduled for October 26th. The property owner is requesting at this time November 14th or 15th. There's people coming in from out of state, and then we are also having the lineup people. If we schedule it, I could call Commissioner Burrell and Potter before next week and verify that works for them if we schedule the time. If it does, we're good. If it's not, then we might have to revisit it.
I'm good either one, 14th or 15th.
Oh, I know the 14th, Commissioner Burrell and I have Wright County Community Action.
And we can go to
In
the
the
Board
evening?
meeting, yep.
Which day? Which
Pardon?
day?
On the 14th, Tuesday. So the 15th, but that's a day. Thanksgiving's the 23rd, right?
Yep.
Yes.
It's the week before, it's the Wednesday before the Thanksgiving week.
If you end up scheduling Bob's meeting on a Thursday of that week, it would be the next day.
Which isn't a big deal.
Yeah, they don't conflict at least.
Yeah. You thinking like a 7 o'clock-ish, or are you thinking
We do last
6 or
6:30,
7?
7? Yeah, it was probably 7.
7 o'clock.
Yeah, 7 at the latest.
I'm okay, but I think we should just go for it and put this one on there for the 15th. November 15th at 7 o'clock here in the county boardroom.
I'll put that in a motion.
I'll put that in a motion. That'll be a motion for November 15th at 7 o'clock here, county boardroom.
I'll second that.
All right, so public hearing on November 15th at 7 o'clock regarding advanced disposal,
Rezoning request.
rezoning request. Is there any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
And you're going to, Sean, you're going to get a hold of them, Michael and Charlie then, and let them know that. Thank you.
Chief Deputy Hoffman. I'm sorry, I didn't see that you were on the schedule. If I would have known that, we would have made sure that we would have had fanfare.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair in waiting, or what is it, what would your title be today then? Are you
He's Mr. Chair.
interim?
I'm Mr. Chair today.
Mr. Chair today? Okay. Members of the board? Today I have in front of you the 2018 Towards Zero Death grant. This is our yearly grant that goes towards reducing the number of fatal accidents here in Wright County. This is a supplemental grant. It's for the amount of $27,300. There's no matching requirement for this. The resolution you have in front of you today allows the Wright County Sheriff's Office to sign this grant. They've changed their process now. They went to a digital grant signing application process. So you actually see the grant attached to the packet. If you would like, you can sign this paper grant, but the actual signing of the grant is done electronically this year.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve or adopt this resolution approving the Toward Zero Death grant, authorizing the Sheriff's Office to administer and sign it.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Fetch. Is there any further discussions?
Just a question then, do you need a copy of the resolution?
Yeah, I'll
To be
then, yeah, we'll
included.
make a copy of the resolution.
Okay, so just remember, board, roll call vote for the resolution.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Houston.
Yes, aye.
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 Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
Good
How's
morning,
Alicia
board.
today?
Sorry, what was that?
How's Alicia today?
We got allergies, but I think we all do, so. So I just wanted to bring the Wright Regional Inspection Program back to you for a final approval of the plan. It is a bit different than when it was presented to you on June 27th. And the changes have been made in response to some letters that we received from the DNR. I can review the changes with you, and then also if you have any questions, the DNR is present here. We have Heidi Wolf and Adam Dahl have been my primary contacts with the plan, but also here are Ann Pierce and Assistant Commissioner Bob Myers. So if you have questions, they are here to answer them for you. Just real quick, the DNR's main concern was that their conservation officer was removed from the plan in its entirety, and that is because a CO cannot enforce a county ordinance. So we have taken care of that. In addressing the signage, was just we added some more detail, including adding drafts of the signs. We did have a public open house, which is described on page 23 of the plan. We had 150 attendees approximately. In addition to that, we posted all of our public comment regarding the plan, both from that meeting and what we received electronically. It totals over 750 pages. We added evaluation section, or at least more detail to it. That starts on page 19 and in the appendix B on page 25. Probably the largest change or addition is in response to the scope section of the DNR letter that we received on July 18th. And so what we added was a what is expected of any users section, and that starts on page 15 of the plan. It goes through what they should do if they're there after hours, or if they have a kayak, just several different scenarios that we think might be common. So those are the primary changes. And then the last few changes are in response to the monitoring requirements DNR letter that you should have in your packet. It has a table on the front of it. Those were added almost in verbatim, or as close to it as I could possibly get. So those are the main changes since you've seen it. And that was my effort to go over those very quickly. But if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Chair, I'd gone, through all the pages, and I didn't read all the comments, but certainly they were overwhelmingly in favor of this. Other areas, counties around the state are watching this because they feel it's a necessary thing that would be a statewide. It would be, more effective if we can move to that. Whether that happens, how long it might happen, is it inconvenient? There was an article in the Star Tribune. Is it inconvenient? It might be for people, depending on where the voters, where they're coming from, and but certainly whatever efforts we can do to stop, slow down, whatever we can, particularly when we have an algae, super algae, however you pronounce it, algae, like starry stonewort, we have to do something, and this is a wonderful first step. And there's a lot of people that have put a lot of hours and a lot of money into this research. It's been going on for a year, pretty nonstop. So Mr. Chair, I know that the DNR is, kind of wrote all this or whatever. You put this together in support of this ordinance, and I would move to accept this resolution.
Sorry, Commissioners, just one more thing. Sorry. Just one slight change that will happen in the plan. It's not in there yet, but...
Hang on one second. Would you withdraw your motion, please?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Sorry. The Lake Pleasant does have Eurasian milfoil now. In the plan, it notes that Lake Pleasant is free of invasive species, but I'll just make a note in the plan that it does have Eurasian water milfoil at this point.
You said we have the deputy commissioner from
an assistant
DNR?
commissioner.
Assistant commissioner?
I believe did he walk in?
Do you have anything you'd like to add or talk about? We're doing this kind of on behalf of the DNR, I think as a partnership, I'm assuming.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. For the record, Bob Meyer, Assistant Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources. And actually, what the Commissioner Landwehr wanted to make sure you're aware of is that through statute, we're basically transferring to you through this program to all legal, financial, administrative responsibilities for this. So we wanted to make sure the county was aware that you're taking on all of the risk and the requirements of the plan that we will sign. Some of the things that are also outlined in the statutes are that the inspection stations have to not create traffic delays for public issues, and that there be no reduction in capacity or hours of operation or public access or fees that discourage use. So this is it's a first step forward. It's the counties, the nation's kind of watching how this works. We wanted to make sure that you were aware of kind of what you're getting into and assuming all the responsibilities for the program.
Do you have anything else to add? What are your thoughts on the whole process?
Well, I mean, you've heard the comments from both sides, right? One of the things that is out there is we're protecting lakes that are infested, so we're inspecting these boats before they go into these infested water bodies. You know, some people are concerned about what about inspecting boats before they go into lakes that are not infested. I mean, that's a larger step forward, right? We'll be evaluating the program over the next month and then moving into next season for meeting the parameters and the timing and things like that to see where it goes. It is a daunting challenge, but one that we're excited to see you take on, and we'll work with you in monitoring the program.
And Mr. Chair, Deputy Commissioner?
Assistant Commissioner.
Okay. And certainly it is in support of what is in statute, you know, on the DNR website, that people are responsible, boaters are responsible to inspect their watercraft after they leave a lake. And hopefully, as more attention is given to this, people will be, you know, more compliant. I think some people just aren't aware of what to look for, and as they perhaps becoming increasingly aware, it will help solve some of these problems. So,
Mr. Chairman, Madam Commissioner, education is key, right? And one thing to note that this ordinance does also impact all docks, boat lifts, swimming platforms, things what we call water-related equipment. So before a resident will be able to put in a dock or any of those issues, any of those items, they'll have to be inspected before they'll be able to be put in the water body.
Mr. Commissioner, this might be for Alicia, a question for her, because there's a lot of gray to this, because I mean, even with the best practices here to try and lay out every possible situation, for anybody that has questions or concerns, that for people whether they live on the lake or plan to use this lake, who is going to be the point person, the point entity to answer a lot of these access questions? Because I've already had people reach out to me going, well, so next spring my dock sits in my front yard. I'm not going to go after, do I have to have somebody bring out to have it inspected? It's never been in another lake. I would imagine the common sense answer would be no, but.
Right, if they're already on the lake.
Commissioner, you're always welcome to send any questions over to me in regards to this plan. I'd also take any AIS questions in general. If it's something I can't answer, I would refer it to the DNR. And just to point out, we do have a situation in there that any new dock lifts or water-related equipment needs to be inspected first. But if you just pull it out onto your the shoreland area and store it there for the winter, it doesn't need to be re-inspected every time it goes back in, as long as it doesn't leave the immediate area.
Thank you.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to add any comments or ask DNR any questions, as long as we have them here? Yes, sir.
Would you
Need you to come up to the podium. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Reverend Mark Nordell, 6929 Pilger Avenue Northwest, 55302.
What city is that?
I'll take
Excuse me?
Side Township, I think.
Where is that?
On Lake Sylvia.
Lake Sylvia? Okay.
First of all, I want to commend you for the work that you've done, as well as the support that you've given to the lake associations. My mother was from Dassel and always wanted to be on Lake Sylvia, so I've been there since I was a year old. I spend much of my time at this point biking around Wright County. And as I do morning devotion thinking about ancient, fragile pieces of water. And what we can do this is just an experiment, and I thank the DNR and I thank you for helping moving this forward. The other day, I put my one boat out, and it's a sailboat, and it's got some, what do you call this stuff? Carpet on the trailer. So I took soap to it, and then I went and got some hydrogen peroxide and tried to do that. And next year, I think I won't have to do that because I'll be able to go and get it done right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Jim Kutzner. I was here the last time. I'm president of the Clearwater Lake Property Owners Association. Our address is P.O. Box 476, Annandale. I'm just here, I'll be brief, I'm just here to speak in favor of this thing. We are in favor of the original. We've reviewed the revised thing, and we are very strongly in favor of this. Clearwater Lake is not part of this. But we are very close to Sylvia and the other lakes, and very concerned about AIS, obviously. We've ramped up our efforts this year, and we've been actively participating in this project, with them, and we'll continue to follow that. And we understand why Clearwater is not part of this. This is a starting point, and we are going to learn a lot about it, learn what goes right and what goes wrong, and we hope to, in the future, become part of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, this is the Wright County, so hopefully there won't be anything that'll go wrong. It'll all be right. Is there anybody else that has anything that they would like to bring up? Nope.
Good morning. My name is Kendall Kubash. I live in Howard Lake, Minnesota. A member of the county for many, many years. I've got a couple questions, I guess. I've tried to peruse through all the piles of paper that are here, and I guess there's a few questions that I haven't seen answers to, and maybe it's just my lack of finding the right area. But when is this project going to be reviewed, to be decided on, to be continued or discontinued?
Alicia, do you want to answer that?
The current plan is for the remainder of the 2017 season, so it would run through October 31st. We would do a short report immediately afterwards, and then we would do a more extensive report before the beginning of 2018. And then it's up to the DNR as to if the program can operate in 2018, and additionally if we would request any changes at that point.
And what data is going to be gathered, and how is that data going to be quantified as far as determining if this is a success or not?
Got that answer too.
Yeah.
Pull out my plan reference point here. So I want to emphasize that this is a logistical pilot. We want to find out if this regional inspection program will operate, so that our focus will be on, do we get clogged during high traffic times? Can we trace the seals back to the accesses, violation percentages, return rate of seals, just to name a few things that we would evaluate. But the primary goal is, does the logistics of the plan work? And that's, can we operate the site? Do we have enough staff? Can we staff it with few enough people to make it more efficient? And then also the number of inspections will show us a bit more of that effectiveness. But last year with Lake Sylvia, we had approximately 4,000 inspections. And that's the largest share of the inspections between the three lakes. If we see an increase in that with fewer numbers, we know we're operating more efficiently. So those are the primary things that we're looking for as far as whether this pilot is successful and feasible. Is that enough for you? There is some more detail in the plan in the evaluation section. As far as there is a data collection section, which starts on page 16 of the plan, and then a evaluation section as well, which starts on page 19.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask a question. So if we're using the months, the later part of September, October, essentially as the benchmark for this logistics, how do you want to call it?
For data collection.
Data collection. I mean, that's probably not a good representation of the average traffic flow, considering that, you know, May or June, July, August would be probably a better benchmark from a logistical standpoint.
That is true, but it will be some data, and if at some point potentially for, I don't imagine that, I'm not sure if these lakes are duck hunted at all. I imagine not. There's so much property that it's not a safe portion, but if we get any traffic volumes at all, we can, you know, say, hey, we're in the, you know, we did good for these at least, and we have some of those operations, and then we'll have a better idea of the seal return as well, the tags, the zip ties that seal the trailer, to the boat to the trailer. And those are some of the primary things I think we would look for, and we could get some of the little kinks worked out before we do have a high traffic weekend like Memorial Day.
How many more questions do you have?
Just one or two.
Okay, I was just wondering if maybe you just want to ask the questions and she could just answer them all at one time or
Okay,
something.
a lot of these things, when there was a meeting that was held in Annandale, a lot of people went there with the idea that either the commissioners would be represented or the DNR would be represented, and there would be some of these questions and some of these things debated, and it wasn't. Today's meeting is obviously overwhelmingly attended by Lake Association people who did a great job to come out here today and support their cause, but it's not very well represented by people that want some other questions answered, and I'd like to have these things publicly aired a little bit so we have a little bit better understanding. Question about the science here. Any experiment requires a control group, and the number of boats entering these 4 lakes historically, if that information is even available, how is that going to be compared to the fact now that a sportsman is going to take a left turn instead of a right turn and say, I'm going to a different lake because I'm not going to stand by Annandale for 5 minutes or 5 hours to get examined before I go on. You don't have a control group here to monitor what kind of change and impact it has. That's one of my concerns. The other is enforcement. Now, I've heard, and I don't know, the DNR has said they will not enforce it. We have a representative of law enforcement here today. Are you going to be sending out the county sheriff to implement these fines? Is that something that you've considered, and is the sheriff's department willing and able to do this?
Well, I would, not to speak for the sheriff's department, but the sheriff's department, I'm assuming, will enforce all the laws of the county and of the state of Minnesota, which is something they all say that they will do. But Chief Deputy, would you have any comments?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, it's unfortunate we're at this position. This is clearly a statewide issue, not just a local issue. These local ordinances do create potential issues for local law enforcement. And just so the Assistant Commissioner's response earlier, this does shift the responsibility away from a state agency that's sole purpose is for natural resources, and now puts it on local law enforcement. Are we local law enforcement adequately equipped to do this? I don't know, we haven't started it yet. However, I do think there's potential better ways of enforcing this instead of using public safety licensed law enforcement officers. There is the ability, we've talked about this generally, of starting, our Parks Department being able to issue citations for ordinance violations. I know there are some expectations from the lake associations on a response, not only to this, but the high water level ordinances. Hopefully during this phase of looking into this project, we take into some of these other considerations, enforcement, time, expectations of the public, instead of just, okay, Wright County Sheriff's Office, Annandale Police Department, you deal with it now. So we haven't worked out the kinks. We'll work with Soil and Water to work out some of these kinks, but just for the board's understanding, again, we are now taking on AIS. Basically, for the state of Minnesota, we are the pilot. So hopefully it'll work out just fine.
Thank you.
Well, it's one of the things with a pilot is you're trying to understand what can go right and what can go wrong.
All right, and finally, lastly, I think that everybody in this room, well, I can't speak for everybody, but I think everybody in this room has their heart in the same place. Invasive species are terrible. Invasive species, we need to look at it very much, very closely. Restricting people's travel, implementing something that may be very time-consuming, and a sportsman's time is valuable from that 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning until the fish stop biting in the course of a day. Is a very short period of time. I do feel a need to do something, but I do think the money would be better spent and the attention would be better spent treating it as you leave some of these infested lakes, because nothing you do is going to stop the species that are already there. The money spent on treatment, I think, would be much better spent, and maybe pick one of these lakes as a pilot lake and see if you can't eliminate one of those species there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Alicia, do you have any answers?
As far as the exit inspections go, we were advised by Greg Kreiser, our attorney, that exit inspections were not, they wouldn't hold up in court as far as the enforcement goes, which is the reason that they aren't included in the plan. At this point, we're hoping that all users of the lake would do their due diligence to clean their boats, both to follow state statute and to be responsible stewards of all Minnesota waters. So that's the reason that they aren't there. As far as treatments go, I think Lake Coronis is probably the best example of the treatment efforts that they have been attempting in regards to starry stonewort. And the fact of the matter is we have money from the Initiative Foundation for this project. We don't have money for a lot of treatment.
Sir, do you have a question or statement?
Hi, Aaron Sandquist, 410 Lincoln Avenue, South Haven, Minnesota, avid fisher and angler. I'll try not to repeat anything, but a couple points I wanted to make, and I apologize for not having anything prepared. Commissioner Hussam, you mentioned that overwhelming support for this. I would disagree, and I went through that 750 pages worth of comments, and if you take out the one template that was copy and pasted, including all of the typos in the exact same email, I would say there was not overwhelming support for this initiative. You heard mentioned the Initiative Foundation. My understanding is that funding comes from the Outdoor Heritage Fund, which is to protect, restore, and enhance fish and wildlife habitat. I would say that the logistical aspect of this plan does not do justice to Outdoor Heritage Fund and that funding. So I read the article last night in the Star Tribune as well. Inconvenient was how we were being portrayed, that we didn't want to be inconvenienced. Well, we're talking about, well, this plan is just a pilot, we're just starting out. Well, there's a lot of inconvenient options that would do a lot more to stop the spread of AIS, in my opinion, and we're overlooking those in favor of a more convenient plan that saves taxpayers and some other folks money. And I just urge you to go back and, you know, rethink this, and let's look for some better plans that would help stop the spread of AIS. Thank you.
So, as long as you have the podium, what would be more inconvenient that would do a better job?
I think it would, well, one, exit inspections. I don't see how we can't do exit inspections on Lake Sylvia 100% of the time. We're doing them now in an informal way through watercraft inspectors. Why can't we set up an equipment and pay for it for everybody leaving the Lake Sylvia? I mean, how is that any different legally than what we're doing now? Would be one thing. Another thing, why don't we pick lakes in Wright County that don't have any invasive species right now? And then we can at least see through this pilot, why can't we, or at least see if it's effective in stopping or slowing the spread of AIS? Let's pick lakes like Pleasant. I applaud that. I think Sylvia and John, they're already infected. Let's pick some other lakes like Sugar, perhaps, and let's do that, this exact same pilot with those lakes, and let's see if we are able or successful in decreasing the AIS species that get into that lake. Few thoughts. I don't have all the answers. I just think if we're going to do something like this and inconvenience people and spend money, let's do it the right way the first time. Let's not take a bad plan and just do it because something is better than nothing, like I've heard so many times. I don't agree with that in this case.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it all right if I respond to those comments as well?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, is we could do exit inspections at Lake Sylvia. We could have our decontamination unit there and have the exit inspections coming out of Sylvia. But that, for the person that comes out of BB Lake or Pelican Lake and they want to get decontaminated voluntarily, I think that the Lake Sylvia landing would be more inconvenient than where it is currently in the city of Annandale. And that is part of the point, is that we would keep our courtesy decontaminations open to all lakes in Wright County. And then also, you know, exit inspections on one lake is great, especially, you know, Lake Sylvia does have starry stonewort, which is incredibly scary, but what about exit inspections on Lake John at that point? We don't have another decontamination unit to put there. Cedar Lake also has zero mussels. We don't have a decontamination unit to put at both of the accesses on Lake Cedar. So that is the point of the exit inspections are a regional exit inspection is what we can't legally enforce. That's the part that won't hold up in court. And then the other point regarding choosing, like, I think using lakes that don't have AIS would be a great idea, but we can't put whether or not they get them on the shoulders of this plan. And, you know, Lake Coronas, for example, had starry stonewort potentially 3 to 5 years before they detected it. So just because a lake goes into this plan and then shows up with something doesn't mean that the plan wasn't successful. And to say that, so you just don't want to fall into that trap if we were to use uninfested lakes in this plan. It's we just want to clarify that point, that just because a lake becomes infested doesn't necessarily mean that the plan isn't working to the best of its ability.
Assistant Commissioner, do you have any additional comments you'd like to make? With some of I'm assuming a lot of these questions are also directed at you.
Mr. Chairman, members, yes, I've been involved with this AIS battle for many, many years, right? And there is no silver bullet. There is no answer. We've done studies about what a statewide inspection program would look like, and it's very, very expensive, millions and millions of dollars. I think the thing that we have here today, we have a group of people who want to try something different. We're willing to work with you all to try to see what we can learn from this. The question about timing is a very good one. Commissioner Vetch Do we do this year, and then what our plan is, we'll approve the plan based upon your approval with the resolution today for the rest of this year, boating season. Come back, and we would anticipate receiving another proposal next spring, or hopefully during the winter time, so we can have discussions about what we learned, see what the plan contains, and see what we can learn at that point in time. Possibly do it for half of the year, if we were to get one, so we can learn from opener, Memorial Day, if there's things that need to be changed by the 4th of July. I think the questions about what are we trying to protect is a good one, and one that we need to evaluate in the future. One of the things I was thinking of as I was sitting here, the pilot project is actually more of a compliance inspection program, since it currently is against the law to transport aquatic macrophytes or transport invasive species. So basically what we're going to be doing, or you all will be doing, will be monitoring the transient boater population for the compliance of state law right now, and also the water-related equipment. So that's a different way to look at it. I think we can learn from some aspect of the metrics we'll gain from that, but it's not without controversy. I think you're aware of that. We're aware of that. And how do we protect the waters of the state while not inconveniencing users and lakeshore property owners is the key, and that's what we're trying to learn here today. Well, you know, we're not enamored with the proposal. There's things that we could change. We're willing to work with you all to try to figure out how do we move forward, how do we learn, and we all have the same goal, protecting our waters of the state of Minnesota. So with that, we're more than willing to work with you all to try to figure out what we can do.
So you do have some suggestions for changes for going forward in the future or something?
Mr. Chairman, members, not off the top of my head, but I mean, I think we're going to learn as, you know, we all on-the-job training, so to speak. So we'll figure it out, and we'll work to provide our recommendations and comments and concerns with you all as much as we can.
Okay. And I apologize for missing part of it. I was at economic development introduction, but because I read your letter last night, and you had, like, there's some things that you would not tolerate, like, let's say somebody comes to get their boat inspected and the line is 2.5 hours long. That would be unacceptable to the DNR. Okay, so at some point, and maybe I say I've addressed this already, but at some point, do you have to say, bypass the inspection thing? Or, you know, if the inspection line got so long, what would we do? I guess I'm just kind of playing that out, what would happen, you know, because you wouldn't tolerate it, and then what would our option be? Would just be to do a cursory inspection to keep the line moving, or what would, you know, and just to look for something real blatant, you know, that would really flag the inspectors? I guess what would...
That's, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, that's a good question, because your ordinance requires these inspections before these watercraft enter those water bodies, right? So, I mean, it's going to come up to enforcement and discussions about that. State statute does require that there's adequate staffing to minimize wait times and then provide adequate hours of operation at inspection stations, excuse me. So either provide more people at these peak times or try to figure out how do we deal with that, but technically those people would be in violation of your county ordinance.
Right, but so then we need to maybe look at that part of the ordinance to have language in there to address that potential, you know, hang up.
And one of the points is that they can go and get inspected prior to entering the lake. It might be the day before. So, in other words, they want to go on the lake at 4 in the morning. Well, go the day before or 2 days before if you don't go anywhere else, and into other lakes that you get infested or whatever. So that is something that I think that they've addressed to try to keep it as,
But Chris, so let's say that person that wants to go out early morning fishing, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they go in the day before, they shouldn't, again, it's still, they shouldn't have to wait for 2 hours in line to get the boat inspected.
Right, yeah, and that maybe wasn't a good example, but say they know they're going to be going fishing that weekend or whatever, they can go at a different time when they can see that maybe after we get some data together about when are people going and where, where are the high numbers coming, then that can be something that they
Oh, no,
can-
and I got that. That's all stuff that the commissioner just mentioned too.
Right.
You could adjust that, but
Yep.
I'm saying for that particular day when we weren't ready for it, and, well, we didn't know anybody would be out that day, and now we have a 2-hour-long wait line, we have to have something written into our ordinance to say, you're waved through, I guess. You can't, I don't think you can delay people. Alicia, sorry, but let's ask somebody that knows this a lot better. Do we have anything addressed like that in our statute?
Addressing the wait time. We're gonna monitor the wait time in this case. So the system that we have imagined at this point is kind of a doorbell, a lot like when someone enters a shop. You have the bell that rings. We're gonna have a like a road ticker hose sort of thing toward the beginning. The bell will go off that will alert the inspector even if they are in the middle of an inspection, and they will be able to note the time that somebody arrives. And then they can take down the license plate, and that will tie it to the exact time that the inspection starts based on the tablet survey. So we will be able to track the wait time, and that will be part of our evaluation process. But we don't currently have if you've been here for an hour and a half, you can leave sort of thing. We're just going to evaluate how long have people been waiting, and is that acceptable, and then what can we do about it. In addition, our site plan, our site plan should accommodate up to 4 inspections at once. So as long as we have adequate staffing present, we're hoping that high traffic situations that we could get through rather quickly. And that does assume that most boats won't need a decontamination, which we only have 1 decon unit, so we can only do 1 decontamination at a time.
But Alicia, if you did have a long wait line, let's say hour and a half, 2 hours long,
Right.
which I think even less than that is, would that be acceptable?
No.
Okay, would not. So why don't we have something written into the plan to deal with that, even though it may never come because you're so good and you have all these contingency things built in? The DMV didn't plan on lines going down, all the way down the hallway of the annex when they rolled out their new software thing either, but it happened, so we have to have a contingency plan built into the ordinance, I think.
Just respectfully, Commissioner, I wonder how a boater could prove that they were at the access for an hour and a half instead of not wanting to go in the first place, as just one potential issue with having some sort of a thing like that. But that's why our evaluation process is going to be so detailed as well. And then we're going to evaluate it monthly on a continual basis.
So what would be a time that you feel, according to the DNR rules, because it says he said you cannot make unreasonable delays, what would you call a time would be unreasonable?
I think that is up to the DNR commissioner, and I would let Assistant Commissioner Meyer address that.
What, you didn't think of it at all, though, or?
As far as what the acceptable time would be, at this point, I guess I have
20 minutes maybe.
So I know Chris Hector from Lake Sylvia wanted to make a comment, so I think I would step aside for that.
Commissioners and Commissioner Burrell, in our current protocols at the DNR for ramp inspections and required decontaminations, if you read through those procedures, there is it's a 15-minute, I believe, exception. So in the current DNR protocols for what you would do in the current scenarios, they say you can delay a boater for up to 15 minutes.
Okay.
That's basically the same standards that we're going to be held to with this plan, and that's not written into the ordinance. I'm not sure that it needs to be written into the ordinance, but it needs to be addressed in the procedures. And so what you would do today, because we have long lines on the 4th of July at ramps. And so you absolutely, and the guidance there in the DNR plans is to use your best judgment. It sets a time limit, and that would be the process and procedure, is you basically do a triage at that point to get people through the lines and on their way.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to continue this conversation a little longer than we have to, but just for the record, our guidance to people that we developed when this statute came out recommended a delay or a reasonable wait time, including travel time to the inspection location, of no more than a half hour. So that would include coming from where your residence to the inspection station and the inspection time. Our goal would be, and we'll be looking to evaluate, 7 to 10 minutes per inspection, a half hour round trip, inconvenience out of people's time. So we are very concerned about that. We'll be working with the project to make sure we can evaluate what's there and, if possible or if need be, develop different protocols that would allow for that to happen.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have anything different to add or anything? Not, then we'll bring it back up here. Any other discussions? And I stand corrected, Commissioner Burrell and Commissioner Potter did show up. Just a little. That was just hopeful thinking, I guess, on my part, that we were get a lot more accomplished faster without them, but.
I guess I have a question. You won't answer? If we were to put something into the ordinance that we're going to, you want to vote on it today, would it need another public hearing, or any change would need another public hearing, or what would be the?
Mr. Chair, I guess Mr. Interim Chair, Commissioner Burrell.
We're letting him take it.
We'll let him keep it for today. Any change to the ordinance would require us to go through the ordinance procedure, which would require a public hearing and 10 days public notice. So, my recommendation is, I guess, given the current state of the ordinance, where we're at in the season, is approve the plan for 2017. If you're looking at that, hopefully there's maybe an on-call type situation we can do to try to get more inspectors out there with the inspection agency for next year. If something does come up, they can try to send more people out. But otherwise, I think if you're looking at an ordinance change, I think it's more appropriate over the winter.
But now, let's say, the commissioner addressed this, and so did Alicia. So, or over here, Chris, I forget your name. But he said that inspectors now are using that discretion, and I think that's wise if they have that latitude. Does the ordinance that we passed really give them that latitude, or would they say, gosh, I don't see where I have a choice but to inspect every boat?
I think it comes down to the discretion of the inspector. And they're the certified DNR inspector. They've gone through the statute, they are processed, they know what it is. If they pass a boat through, that's their decision.
Because what Chris mentioned, what happens now, if they do get this long line, they do a more cursory inspection, and if there was one that was just obvious had a problem, that one they would pull aside, but the other ones, I guess it would still be inspected, whether it'd be a good inspection.
At that point in time, I would classify that as an inspected boat.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone comes through with a sailboat that clearly has new anti-fouling paint on it, hasn't been in the water yet this year, and brand new, and they pass it through,
don't get personal.
I'm just saying, I mean, that's a clean boat at that point in time versus one that, has weeds hanging off the wheels of it. It's up to the inspector. You can't.
They know what they're doing.
I can't describe every situation, but.
Okay, thank you.
You ready?
Any other discussions? All right. Somebody want to make a
you know what, Mark? I did have one other thing. Maybe you had mentioned it because I asked you to, but the voluntary inspections, and what we're voting on now today doesn't include the treatment part of it, not the phase 2. Okay, that would come back as another ordinance or?
Alicia, do you want to answer that question? I know he did have that, and we haven't had a chance to ask about that.
Yeah. So for the alternative decontamination process, my understanding is that in order to require it, the DNR would need to update their decontamination guidelines in the first place, which I would let the DNR answer any questions about that process. So
to answer your question, it is a completely separate issue.
Okay.
And because there is no real chemical that's been approved by anybody yet, so I'm going to say that we'll just leave that one go for now.
there actually is. There is a chemical, I'll throw out a big word, it's a sodium carbonate perohydroxate. It's a granule that when put into the water breaks down into sodium carbonate and hydrogen peroxide, and that is registered as an algicide. So, but hydrogen peroxide itself is not a registered algicide.
So there is a product, but it hasn't been utilized in a float the boat situation.
No, I have a couple of papers on it that we were shared with Dr. Rogers from Clemson University, and those have been in-lake treatments and lab protocols, so I'd be happy to share them with you if you like.
Okay, but at this point, there is no approved method for a chemical treatment in a float your boat situation.
Okay, so not to belabor the point, but when that time does come, I guess if I was a boater and I'm not, but a fisherman or whatever, and I were to go to Lake Sylvia, fine, inspect my boat, but when I leave Lake Sylvia, I want it decontaminated because I don't want to be the one to bring that to another lake around. Would I have a priority, or would I have, I'm trying to do the right thing because I'm basically assured that my boat has some type of, in the engine, a good chance of having some algae in there.
Sure.
But then on the other hand, you're going to make me now go and wait in line for. Well, again, Commissioner Burrell, since there is no such thing and everything as you're talking about, it's kind of a theory.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen, and maybe things will be improved by then, that they'll actually have one at each exit, or, a boat ramp, so who knows? Yeah. You have anything else to add on that?
I would just, say that the way we have our site plan set up, it's fairly easy once someone gets to the front of the line for them to go, I just go straight to the decontamination. Okay, straight up to the decontamination, and that's good for anybody that comes off of Sylvia, or if somebody comes from, say, Cedar Lake and wants to just do a courtesy decontamination, we're going to do our best to keep that survey is readily available and keep it convenient for people as well.
And our current decontamination, so that we don't confuse anybody, is strictly hot water and high pressure.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Because now going forward, if we enter into this decontamination via a chemical, this hydrogen peroxide blend, whatever it may be, liability on Saltwater County as far as the damage to trailers, boats from this decontamination?
Well, again, since there is no product out there for this purpose, I would just caution us to quit discussing that, because we don't know, everything is all theoretical. And I would say that since there's no product out there, you can't really say what liabilities would be, because there is no such product available right now for this situation.
We are unsure of the details of any alternative decontamination at this point, and that's why it's not being presented as yet. So we'll like to stick to the regional inspections first, and then we'll tackle any alternative decontaminations.
In the current state, then, who assumes liability, even with the hot water and high pressure? Is it for damage to any trailer that's being decontaminated?
Our lake service provider.
Okay.
And I guess I
am willing to go along with this, but I will be more than willing to bring this back to the board if something is not being handled right out there. And I'm hearing from constituents across the county that it's not working. I'll be the first one to introduce the repeal, so.
Well, if I remember correctly, and I don't know if you were here earlier, Commissioner Burrell, but the Assistant Deputy Commissioner, Meyer. Or Assistant, I'm sorry.
Assistant Director.
Assistant Director.
Assistant
Sorry, I
Commissioner
was
Bob
never,
Meyer.
whatever. The DNR guy had stated that chances are they're going to look at it for a partial next summer to get even better information and then have some requirements or changes are looked at maybe by the 4th of July. Is that what you had stated earlier?
Mr. Chairman, yes, just quickly. So the plan before us right now, before you all, is for the remainder of this boating season. We anticipate that, assuming a successful rollout, if you want to call that, we will receive another application for next year, which we will evaluate, probably come back to you all to get your blessing again. The Commissioner Landwehr feels it's important that we have a public record of the acceptance and willingness to assume the liability and financial authority of this program. At that time, we'll evaluate a proposal in front of us for next year and talk about timing and dates and things like that. So we're getting a little bit the cart in front of the horse right now. We're looking at approving this pilot project for the remainder of this boating season.
And then I had a question. Would you be able to, is your time, would you be able to hang around a little bit after the meeting?
Most definitely.
I'd like to meet with you, a little bit, so.
Certainly. The other conversations that you're having, I believe, will probably require a change in state statute as well. So just we'll have to talk about where things go from there, so.
Yeah, that's why I just...
Exactly.
There's nothing out there. There's no reason to even discuss it.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Commissioner Burrell?
Ready, Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Potter?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair.
I'm a good actor, too, all right.
This is his first rodeo here, so he's working on it. I don't know if any of you know that I do own a resort on a lake up in Alexandria. A good friend of mine, Senator Bill Ingebrigtsen, has lots of concerns about this. Our pilot program here is just that pilot. We're going to try to see how we can stop this, because if we do not at least attempt to make a stop of the starry stone wart and some of these things on our lakes, we will have a Lake Coronas here. And anybody who's on that lakes or anybody who visits them lakes don't want that. I don't want that. We got to try. We have nothing to lose by trying. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, nothing ventured, nothing gained. But we have to try something. Is it perfect? Is it going to make everybody happy? Absolutely no. Because I have fishermen all the time. Oh, you can't do that. I want to just go fishing. I don't want to be... Yeah, and then you bring this from there to there, and pretty soon every lake's got it. Remember zebra mussels, remember milfoil, remember, these things get started somehow, some way. Most boaters are responsible. Some just don't care. The idea is we have a very great asset in this county, a lot of lakes. People recreate on them a lot, and I just want to keep them nice. We are working with Soil and Water to clean up some of the smaller lakes and some of the other things, doing all kinds of different projects to keep them clean, so not only you can enjoy them, but your children, your grandchildren will be around to enjoy them too, so they don't all turn into such impaired waters you can't enjoy them.
Don't forget the great-grandchildren. You didn't state that.
Okay. And then I'm off my soapbox now. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution accepting the regional inspection plan.
You gonna say where?
I have to say all that stuff too?
Go ahead.
The resolution accepting the regional aquatic invasive species inspection plan for East and West Lake Sylvia, Lake John, and Pleasant Lake.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in roll call vote. Commissioner Potter?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion, resolution carries unanimous. All righty.
It's going to be a good time for a break if you're here for an hour already.
Do we have a lot left? We do?
Well,
now we have committee minutes. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break.
I've been here for so long.
You need a potty break already, Commissioner Potter?
All right, you're live.
I'm going to bring bricks next time. Don't they Vikings have those soft, pliable, plastic, styrofoam ones?
Yeah, Charlie, you'd think your representative from the airport could get you guys one of those.
Yeah, you would think, they could use those, normally, I remember they're selling them, or you throw them against the TV and stuff. We are back up.
I think we're back.
Okay, items for consideration. Commissioner Burrell, could you, no. Commissioner Houston, would you please take the Personnel Committee minutes?
Take the gavel from him. I made a big...
I offered it to you, it's not my fault.
I should have taken it, I made a big mistake.
All right, thank you. The Personnel Employee Relations Committee met on September 13th. Members present: Delyden, Hewsome, Asselson, Hevola, S. Johnson, Elmeyer, Partlow, Pollock, Schwartz, and Faith. And the first item was the ditch coordinator position. Bob Hevola, our auditor treasurer, distributed a document entitled 2017 Staff Request to illustrate the cost and wages and benefits to the county for this position. And there's an attachment. He encouraged the department heads and managers to complete this form whenever they wish to illustrate the financial impact of position changes when presenting requests to the Personnel Employee Relations Committee. Hevola said the ditch coordinator job description was reviewed and points were determined, and it was budgeted for the last 2 months of the 2017. There's no supervision required, and the grade was set at 13. This position is not an engineer, but must understand the vernacular of surveyors and engineers. Hevola said there's a possibility that the future ditch coordinator could potentially start on 11/1/17. As previously discussed, the cost of this position is going to be split 50% to the county and 50% to the county ditch system. And he'll ask the county board for direction in the future regarding how costs related to this position will be allocated. There was discussion regarding whether the county commissioners wish to be involved with the interview process. Sean Johnson, Human Resources Director, said they may be involved as long as they are present at all interviews. Hevola said he will ask the commissioners to take part with second interviews. The recommendation is to authorize advertising a ditch coordinator position.
Commissioner Houston, just to clarify something. Regarding asking the board for directions on how the position shall be allocated through the ditches, it's something that he's going to bring forward later on. And it's whether or not it's set up per mile, per benefited landowners and that sort of stuff. So he'll have some different ideas and that sort of stuff. Currently, the ditch software was per mile, I think he said.
Well, that would be the most equitable fashion, wouldn't it, if the ditch drainage DB is done through mileage? But
I think that's how it's
See,
done.
on a particular ditch system, it's done by the evaluation, the amount of land and whatever, but that's not fair when you take the entire ditch system in the county, because if you've been redetermined, well, now you have a lot higher benefit of the drainage because it's in today's dollars. So, yeah, so they have to come up with something.
So anyway, just a heads up that will be, I believe we talked about it be a committee of the whole, I think, for discussion on that in the future. So
until they're all redetermined, it wouldn't be fair.
Just a heads up on it. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you for bringing that up. The second item was to reclassify an Office Technician 1 to an Office Technician 2 in Health and Human Services. Christine Partlow, the Health and Human Services Business Manager, requested permission to convert one OT1 position to an OT2 in the Physical Technology and Support Unit that includes servicing the front desk. And she distributed a document entitled, and you've got that in your packet, Convert an OT1 to OT2. And over the past few years, 10 OT1 positions have been hired, and then as soon as an opening occurs in another area that's an OT2 position, the are applying for that position, and so they've been having trouble keeping people in the OT1 position. On the average from 2015 to 2017, the average time period that an OT1 personnel lasted in that area was 5.5 months. So by that time, they just have completed their training, but they have not even hit their probation or ended their probation time. Partlow said the average vacancy is about 60 days, during which time staff has shifted to the work has shifted to other staff, and there would be about a $2.35 per hour differential. Partlow says that raising the position to a higher level will encourage staff to stay. There are 5 OT1 positions at the front desk. Only one would be converted to an OT2. She hopes the potential OT2 would create longevity and continuity at the front desk and stay 3 to 5 years. The OT2 would train the new OT1 staff and monitor workflow. And Schwartz said that it would be good to have someone with seniority on hand to deal with difficult people or situations. And Johnson said he prefers to post positions both internally and externally to get the best candidates. There was some discussion about we just posting internally, and they felt it's best to do both. So the recommendation is to approve the reclassification of Office Technician 1 to an Office Technician 2 in the Health and Human Services Fiscal Technology and Support Unit. With that, Mr. Chair, I will move the minutes and the recommendations.
I will second that.
Motion by Commissioner Newsom, second by Commissioner Potter. Any other discussions?
As far as being involved with that interview process, is that was Bob's going to talk down to some of us and Sean Lee?
That was kind of my thought. I didn't know if there was interest from multiple members of the board or just a few, but once the process gets set, we can have that discussion. I didn't know if the board wanted to do it as a whole. I guess the sense I got, it would be a representative or maybe 2 from the board.
I know I would want to be one of them.
We kind of came up with that probably 2 members would be part of that process, and we thought that
at the most.
Yeah, that Chairman Burrell would want to be one of them. So we kind of figured that already.
A lot of ditches in my
yeah.
So, and we had talked about it for the second interviews instead of being involved in all the interviews.
Yep.
But if you go to one, you have to go to all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the law.
And Mr. Acting Chair.
What?
With the ditch coordinator, if you're looking for it to be perfect right out of the gate, you're set up for failure. You're going to have to get that person in there, get some things, figure out, you have a kind of a base formula how to do things, and then you're going to have to adjust it to match equity and fairness at some point in time. But you got to get that person in place first to get this process moving forward. Because we are responsible for the ditches and we need to take care of them.
I think there's just some philosophical thoughts to it that the position that would be kind of part of maybe a vetting process to it is I would maybe say.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
would that be a good way of stating it, Charlie?
I don't know. All right, any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. B, EAW, Knife River, Nectar Barn Gravel Pit. Adopt resolution accepting the findings of fact, conclusions, and order for the environmental assets worksheet, and request a negative declaration for an environmental impact statement. Do we have an attorney that needs to talk about this at all or anything?
No, Mr. Chair, I can speak to this. This was an item that, as you probably recall, was on last week's board agenda, and it was voted as outlined, but unfortunately we did not do it as a resolution. A roll call vote is needed, so that's the only reason it's back, as we need a resolution to accept those findings of fact with a voice vote. So
okay.
The only reason it's here.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution accepting the findings of facts, conclusions, and orders for the environmental asset worksheet and request a negative declaration for an environmental impact statement.
I will second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Burrell?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I didn't know which way we were going, if it's going clockwise or...
That's all right, makes a difference. We got the job done. That's what's important.
The man with the bow tie is happy now.
Mainly our secretary.
Advisory Committee, Advisory Board updates. Does anybody have anything? We have a 11 o'clock that we have to go to. But does anybody have anything they'd like to talk?
Just keep mine brief. AMC Policy, Fall Policy Committee was at Breezy Point. As you know, I chair the Transportation Policy Infrastructure. We have a platform going forward where, since this is next year will be a gubernatorial election, there will not be a big push with the legislatures. What we're doing is congratulating them and making a comprehensive transportation plan, but also reminding them that you can't just check the box and move on, that this is a continuing, ongoing process. And that's, this year is going to be more consensus building and information sharing with them.
Somebody's saying it's a bonding year also.
Yeah, but this isn't the year, this is not a good year to push. Like last year we pushed hard. This is not one of those years because the election coming up at gubernatorial, nobody's going to stick their neck out this year for anything. And so it's best just to, this is the year to regroup, educate, and get ready to move forward.
Have they stuck their neck out in the past or anything?
No.
Okay, just wanted to get that clarified, so.
Oh, and then Mr. Acting Chair. Last night I attended the Buffalo City Council meeting in reference to the Justice Center, the courts moving out there. We were at the Planning and Zoning the week before, and last night they approved our conditional use permit and our PUD for both. They will have some questions coming forward about sewer and water, as is big enough to handle without it, but nothing major, just things that were addressed quite well at the P&Z meeting. And that's all I have.
Architects were there?
Excuse me?
Was there our architect there at all?
Yes, he was. Anthony Enright was there. Also, the gentleman from engineer was there also.
Okay. So Mr.
Houston was there just to make sure I showed up.
Good. That's it?
That's it. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Houston?
Yes, I was at META last Wednesday, and we approved a grant. We give grants of $500 to schools for different reasons, and this one is for the Laker Proud mentor groups. That's the project title, and it's to be, the population to be served is Humphrey Elementary School, grades K through 4, approximately 250 students, and Winstead Elementary School, grades K through 4, approximately 225 students. And it's a mentorship program to provide guidance and support to each other. And they have, goals, and so we feel that's well worth the $500 to help them build that program. We also, Darnell Bredhorst from probation was there and talked a little bit about the drug court. There's 11 participants now. They have felony level offenses. It's very intense. It's going well. And anyone that wants to sit in on drug court, sometime it's Thursday afternoons at 1:30. And I've only been there once, but it's good. And we also talked about the fact that in state health, drugs and alcohol are really in the top five issues in different categories, and we're looking at potentially a grant for opioid prevention program. So hopefully that will come through. And then I was at the Public Works Labor Management meeting, and they put down 140,000 tons of hot mix this year compared to a normal year of 80,000. So, I mean, way up. And it went well at the county fair, and the prices are coming in good for salt, but we don't have a contract yet. So we'll see what happens with that. And that's all I have.
I was also at Health and Human Services at the Fall Policy Council. I don't have my notes with me, and in the interest of time, I'll pass, and I'm going to have some discussion points next week. The other discussion point I would like to ask now, we have the 10th of October off, if I remember correctly, no county board meeting.
That's correct.
And if I remember correctly, the 9th should be a Health and Human Services meeting, and then the 11th would be committee meetings. So,
Columbus Day, we're closed.
Columbus Day is on the 9th, okay.
I think we're closed that day.
Okay, so, yeah, I don't know, are we closed on the 9th, Columbus Day?
Columbus Day, no.
Oh, we are,
Not,
okay.
okay.
But do we move Health and Human Services?
So that's something that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. We canceled that meeting, and I don't remember why. Other than being 5 Tuesdays, why we chose that particular one.
I know we should have chose Halloween.
So, just to bring it up so that, I mean, you know, if we're going to do that, why have the other one?
Or no?
I suppose you could.
Because it makes no sense to be out the Tuesday when you have Health and Human Services and committee days on the Monday, Wednesday. But
so, and I wasn't sure if there was somebody that wasn't going to be around, if there was another eclipse or something that there were some commissioners that had to go to.
I know the week before is the administrators and HR directors
Administrators, I think it was for Lee.
So being selfish, that was my preference, as that I would not have to prepare agenda during that time.
Okay. So should we cancel it or schedule it later?
Well, the question is, do we want to postpone the Health and Human Services and committees so that somebody could actually take a little vacation if they wanted to or something?
That'd be a nice idea.
Go see the colors somewhere instead of having to deal with it on a weekend. So, anyway, we can talk about it next week. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. Commissioner Ratch.
So fall AMC policy conference, general government, I'll kind of keep it quick, but two big things we talked heavily about is obviously the Enbridge and the public utilities evaluations. Something because obviously we have some big public utilities in our county and they're all watching very closely what Enbridge gets on this. Right now they're looking like they're going to get some substantial money back. And that's going to come, some of the counties up north in this situation, I mean, it's more than their entire levy that they have to get, that they're getting back in funds. So the biggest thing is watching and trying to participate in St. Paul as to what St. Paul legislators decide to do in this situation, because us as counties couldn't afford to start taking those hits. Other side of it too is, and the same thing as property tax valuation, is dark stores. This was an interesting thought though, but the trend is to try and put minimum evaluation contracts in place on new box stores that are coming in to prevent the dark stores trend from taking hold. That way, when these builders put into it, they sign and agree to know what their property is going to be valued at
up front,
and that way at a minimum, so they can't claim that it's only customized to their needs and not worth anything. So.
And real quick, I had a conversation with Dan Larson. I don't know if you guys know him, but you will at some point, hopefully in the future. It's the executive director of the Rural Association of Minnesota Counties. And I've been bugging him since I've been on the board here because Wright County could not be in. They had a population limit before. And I said, that's going to come back to hurt you because even as your counties grow, you'll get bumped out. You'll be losing membership. I said, you should change that. So they actually did at their meeting. Mm-hmm. They dropped the population requirement, and what they did is they just excluded the 7-county metro area. So Wright County would be able to join. So he said he'll be probably getting a letter up to Lee, and I sure hope that the board supports me on joining that organization, because I said we have a lot of issues that, you know, with our ditches and things like that are addressed way more prevalently with the Rural Association. So I think it would be something that would be worthwhile for us to join.
Yeah, Mr. Acting Chair.
Yeah.
I've been following the Rural County Caucus. It used to be called the Minnesota Rural County Caucus, now it's the Rural County Caucus, and Dan Larson. For a long time there, they were running complete opposite direction what AMC platform was. They were actually sabotaging a lot of different provisions down there because they were metro versus rural. They're keeping that fight going. They have toned down their rhetoric. They have changed a lot of direction to be more complementary to things. So I am pleased with the improvement that's happened over the last 4 years with that caucus. I've had a lot of talks with the commissioners in those counties that are part of that, and even the counties that opted out of it because some of the tenuous things they did, but they have come a long way in making it more, instead of us versus them, how do we all get together better? And so I am pleased that they're heading in the right direction.
And I'm not sure what those issues were, but I'd probably be siding with the rural people on those. I don't know.
No, some of them weren't, but since I'm an urban commissioner, I don't need to talk about it.
Okay. But anyway, we'll be getting an invite, apparently. So.
Okay. Is there anything else that you have?
That's it.
Mr. Chair, Acting Chair, one more thing. Commissioner Burrell did the opening speech at the brokers event for the Wright County Economic Development Partnership, and he had him on the floor rolling, laughing. He did a fantastic job. He kept on point, didn't stammer and stutter and all that. He did a great job, and so I told him to grab a couple extra burritos on the way home. He did. On the way out.
Good, good. So you welcome everybody to the Wright County then?
Yep. Yes, he did.
We're in the right place, the right time.
I gave them the highlights, high points that I said. You know, we have an excellent transportation thing. We're improving it. We have low crime. We have skilled workforce, and we have a lot of things going for us, close to the metro area, lower taxes. And I said, bring your businesses out here, and they all said they will. So.
Just to let the board, you did a great job at the opening speech this morning.
Well, congratulations, Commissioner Burrell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else before the board? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 10:44.
Good job.